KC Laboratory. Sponsored by Emprise Bank.
It's a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank. When was the last time you went into a bank? Now more than ever, who you're doing business with is more important than where they're located. Emprise Bank is a trusted business partner that can serve anyone, anywhere. If you are listening to this, you should be listening to what Emprise Bank has to offer. So thrilled to be partnering with them. Honored to be working with them. They've been a lot of fun, and they're fantastic. I really hope if you're looking for business, for banking, you should consider them. Make sure that they're part of your consideration. And I real quick off the top, I know a lot of people have been concerned about Craig Stout. Craig is fine. It's just kind of a crazy week for Craig Stout.
He's actively flying an airplane. He just sent us a DM. He's actively flying and coding an airplane at the same time. I don't know how you do that, but
this is not happening. A joke. This is real. Craig Stout is actually in an aircraft right now. There's no joke. Find him on Twitter at Maddie_KCSN.
Who that?
Rest in peace, Chief in Carolina. Matt Lane. I'm honestly a little bit disappointed, sad. I don't know exactly how to feel that Chief in Carolina is gone. You're just trying to screw my intro up, aren't you?
I mean, that was my priority number one. I wanted to have fun with some of the Grim Reaper talk, and as soon as I did it, I was like, oh no, someone might come for Chief in Carolina. Let me make sure I have a backup ready just in case that happens. And lo and behold, Chief in Carolina got bopped pretty quick as soon as I got rid of it. It got taken right off the board, but that was all right. We're ready for a change. Now I think every 3.5 weeks, I'm going to change it just to keep Kent on his toes.
Yeah, like this is like honestly, like I had anxiety. Like this is Maddie. Like Maddie's very free flowing, just kind of go with the flow, very relaxed about anything that comes his way. And I'm just having anxiety. It's like this man's entire brand has been Chief in Carolina for the last 4 years, and he's just like, I'm good, you know. So yeah, it was just kind of fun. Yeah, Maddie KCSN. I'm gonna have to really get used to that. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so we have been raising money for Feed It Forward, our program that's going to be helping with food insecurity in 2022. It's something that we're very honored to be part of. And the fundraiser that we've been doing here has been to enter a raffle, more or less for tickets to the AFC Championship game. And I just want to make sure to say before we start, thank you guys so much for participating in this. I know obviously people are excited to try to get to the AFC Championship game, but also thank you for supporting Feed It Forward and what we're trying to do here at KCSN to support our community. And you guys came out in full force to help support the community. So we are ready to announce a winner for the raffle. And
Did I win?
No, Maddie. And if you had won, we would have drawn another name. I'm sorry. That's not how this works. We're going to be in Las Vegas anyway for the AFC Championship game as it is. So if you guys are ready, the winner of the tickets is Alex Fox. So a big congratulations and a thank you for supporting what we are doing here and in the Feed It Forward program. Congratulations to Alex Fox. You're going to the AFC Championship game. And thank you so much to everyone that participated. I don't know if we're going to release some numbers later, but I know you helped at least 1,500 meals go to the homeless in Kansas City. That's such a special thing that you guys participated in. And we're very, very appreciative of that. All right, it is time to start talking about Chiefs Bengals. And a question just off the top, Maddie, do you feel prepared to talk Chiefs Bengals, or is the hangover of what we just experienced, Chiefs Bills, still lingering in your head? Where are you mentally right now? Because I'm just fascinated. Where are you sitting mentally right now?
Where do you think I am, Kent? If you had to guess where Maddie_KCSN is sitting right now, where do you think that would be?
I think you've just got just you're speaking with your chest. You're feeling it. You know that there's the potential for the letdown, but you just feel that this team has come out and done something special in the last few days, and you know it's going to carry over into the Bengals game. It doesn't matter what they do. That's the vibe I think you're having right now. What are you feeling?
Buddy, ain't no letdown coming. This team isn't sitting there to let down. If they were playing maybe the Titans, but even the Titans beat them earlier in the year, like you'd have to have somehow snuck a team in here that had no relevance whatsoever to what the Chiefs were doing for me to even start considering a letdown game. But the fact that it was the Bengals who just beat the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, like the last team to beat the Chiefs is the Bengals. They did it kind of in this not embarrassing fashion, but a big comeback that, doesn't look good upon the team. I think there is zero doubts that this team is ready to flip that page and get going. Just look at the locker room. Like when you saw all these videos coming out of the locker room from after the game, guys were excited, guys were pumped up, obviously, and feeling it after that game. But from Andy down to the players, everybody was ready to start considering what's happening next. They were ready to start thinking about the next game. They got through that moment a lot faster. I think they got over that crazy game against the Bills faster than the Bengals got over their game against the Titans. It wasn't as crazy, but it was still last play of the game. Kicker has to come out and kick this game-winning field goal kind of situation. I don't think the Chiefs are anywhere close to this kind of letdown trap game at all for this one.
I hate being the guy that's like, well, losses in the regular season can sometimes be a good thing. But honestly, I feel like the loss against the Bengals in a lot of ways was kind of a good thing because I'll say it flat out. I think the Chiefs did enough to win that football game. I think we've talked a lot about this. It feels like the refs and the refereeing and the officiating in that football game definitely altered the outcome of that game. I mean, the Chiefs were up 11 points at one point. There's some situational football and some stuff there that we can talk about maybe as we get into this a little bit. But I honestly think the Chiefs did more than enough to win that football game, and things kind of kept them out of that occurring. But I love the fact that the Chiefs lost that game. I really do, because I think that is just an additional reason, an additional layer for this team to be locked in, and provides a little bit more focus. I mean, if you need any reason to not be amped about this game, you probably got problems, but I think there's just a few more layers here and there. Before we get too far into this, we have a very special announcement about the AFC Championship game and more. Just take a look at this here real quick. That is right. The Kingdom Bar and Grill is going to be available. You can watch the AFC Championship game there. I am so excited for people to get a chance to see what Kingdom Bar and Grill is all about. It is such a cool venue. It's such a cool location. It's a great place to watch a game. They have taken Chiefs fans into consideration in building this thing. It is an absolutely fantastic experience, and I cannot wait for people to get a look at this. So make sure, if you are looking to watch the game somewhere, Kingdom Bar and Grill is absolutely a place that you need to be taking a look at if you're in the area. It is the place to look at if you are going to be in the area. Make sure you get out there if you are over in Overland Park or just in the KC Metro, because it is going to be such a cool experience and such a fun vibe as the Chiefs. I don't know. Well, no, well, you know what? We won't talk about our predictions for Chiefs.
Trying to spoil the whole show.
We can't. I was about to end the show. I was trying to get out of here, Maddie.
Okay,
this
now
was
wait a second.
Just try to move on and try to just kind of get done with this thing here. All right, let's talk about Chiefs Bengals. And I know, there's probably some people that are a little bit still just sitting and enjoying what we saw against the Bills. And honestly, I think I kind of am in that mode a little bit. I feel, I've been rewatching moments, and it was such a special game. Like, I mean, honestly, we're talking about one of the greatest games in the history of the National Football League. But the Chiefs have to move on, and so do we. And we have to
Turn that
focus.
page, Kent.
We got to turn that page. You're right. We got to turn that page, baby. We got to get focused on the task at hand, because the task is not done. And the Chiefs can sprint. They can sprint through this last week, have 2 weeks to rest for the Super Bowl if they can get through the Cincinnati Bengals. We talked about this a little bit. This is a team that they've played. This is a team that they lost to on the road against the Bengals. Somewhat controversial. But let's kind of unpack. Let's start with the game that we just saw these two teams play. What things that you saw that carried over, or what are the things that you worry carry over? And what are the things that you worry about from the first matchup? What is the first, like, I'm assuming I know what the first thing is, but let's just go. Like, what are the things that are kind of giving you pause, giving you concern based on what we saw the last time these two teams matched up?
For me, I'm not going to start with the obvious because I think everybody knows what those are, but this Bengals offense is so collegey to me. Everything about this offense screams college offense to me, and that makes it incredibly simple, but that also makes it easier for good players to execute it. So the scheme, the concepts, they're very easy for any player to execute, but then when you put really good players into that system, they can execute these plays fantastically. I think you've seen that with this Bengals team, whether it's Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, all these guys, Joe Mixon, they're put in situations to where it's relatively simple. They're not having to read too much stuff. It's not a play designed to work against one specific scheme that they saw on film coming up, but rather they're saying the defense isn't going to be able to cover you if you run this play well. And unfortunately, that's true when you're dealing with guys of that talent level. So just that offense is really hard to break. It's hard to beat the offensive system because it's such a bland, simplistic system that Zach Taylor runs for the Bengals. I think the Chiefs have a coaching advantage on both sides of the ball here, but it's really hard to say, oh, Steve Spagnuolo's coaching advantage, his scheme being better is going to win, because I just think the simplicity of their system, the simplicity of that offense overrules any gap that may be there with just talent and saying, hey, guy, you're good. Go run faster than the guy across from you. And when they can frequently, it's really hard to come up with answers that aren't based on the individual player across from them.
Yeah, the Jimmy's and it's X's and O's versus Jimmy's and Joe's argument in some way, shape, or form. Because, like, yes, I do think. I don't want to get too crazy, because I do think that there's a solution for every coverage that Joe Burrow could see pre-snap with just about every play. But there's just a lot of really good skill players executing that offense. And if you were looking at a 7-on-7 team, like the Bengals offense would be one of the best, because it's not just he who shall not be named, Jamar Chase. It's there's guys that really
kind of is.
Yeah, he's all right. He's decent, but like there's other players that can really execute and really beat you. T. Higgins, a guy that would look great in Kansas City. Tyler Boyd. These are guys that have some skill, they have some ability, and the trigger man, Joe Burrow. Like, there are more weapons than just Jamar Chase. And yes, maybe the offense and the scheme isn't as complex as maybe an Andy Reid, and Andy Reid's kind of putting in that extra time to kind of maximize his skill players in different ways. But there is a little bit of freedom and confidence that those guys definitely play with on the field. And you saw it, because like sometimes it's just as simple as, my guy's better than your guy. And the last time that these two teams matched up, the answer was, and we can talk a little bit about him, he's the boogeyman in some way, shape, or form. It's Jamar Chase, former Kansas football commit. Jamar Chase. Very important to talk about that.
Why didn't he go to Kansas? Can you enlighten people on why he decided to decommit from Kansas?
I mean, he committed for like 2 weeks. Yeah. KU at one point had like a top 10 recruiting class in all of college football before everybody decommitted. I mean,
but didn't the Kansas head coach tell him he couldn't play college wide receiver?
Nope. Oh, okay. You are mixing your timelines up, because Les Miles was not there yet. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It was
now,
just before.
The guy that didn't think Jamar Chase could play football was Kansas's head coach after that. So that's much better. But I mean, Jamar Chase, look, I mean, like we can't ignore him, and we have to talk a little bit about him. Jamar Chase wrecked the Chiefs game last time around, and it bred a lot of stupid narratives. Like, credit to Joe Burrow for being willing to throw the ball to Jamar Chase, but that game looks a lot different without Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase was the storyline of that football game. It was not a Mahomes versus Burrow thing that's worth even discussing. especially after last week now. But Jamar Chase was the guy, and he made some outstanding plays. He kind of, he pinpointed and showed the weaknesses of this Chiefs defense. And the thing that probably worries you if you're a Chiefs fan is that Jamar Chase and the Bengals shown a propensity to attack the area of the field that the Chiefs try to force, or try to force throws and hope for those low percentage throws to hit. The problem is those throws aren't as low percentage if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, Matty.
This is something we talked about heading into that game. The Bengals are a team that will throw these balls up the sideline. They did that. It went poorly. We all know that now. Chiefs fans, the Chiefs as a team, everybody knows that went really bad for the Chiefs when the Bengals decided to do that. So the question is, are they going to do that again? Will they come out with essentially the same game plan? Are they going to say Jamar Chase is better than Charvarius Ward or Rashad Fenton or whoever might be defending him vertically, and just keep throwing up these 50-50 balls, for a lack of a better word, to him despite being well covered? You're throwing up a low percentage pass. The problem is he's been so good at coming down with them all year, but then especially against the Chiefs in that particular game, will they be willing to live in that world again? Now, I do think a little bit of that was not necessarily game script, but the way the game was going. I don't think if they started off 1 for 3 on those types of passes, they would have thrown 6 more of them throughout the game. They kept throwing them because they were working. It wasn't like that was their only plan of attack, but they started out working early in the game, so you might as well keep feeding them until it stops. And the only time the Chiefs really stopped the ball from going to Jamar Chase deep was one good play by Charvarius Ward, in which he got up and, celebrated in front of Jamar Chase. And we all know how that ended after that point. And then another one was the T. Higgins. Those were the only real vertical shots that they stopped. And Jamar Chase, besides that, I think caught 6 other passes down the sideline on these fades or go routes. And it was just the Chiefs had no answer. If the Bengals decide to go this route again, which they should, the Chiefs are going to have an answer for it. I don't know what their answer is going to be right now. I mean, Kent, what would you do? What would you do to stop Jamar Chase?
I mean, I would probably try to sit a safety over the top of him and be very intentional about keeping safety over the top. And I would try to, maybe muddle, sit in cover 2 a little bit and just try to, maybe cheat a little bit that safety over the top of him, because I think you need to try to rough him up at the line of scrimmage. I think you need, like Charvarius Ward, I would try to be very physical with him at the line of scrimmage. I'd try to rough him up. I would try to make the referees officiate this game in a manner in which that is, that it's either going to be tolerated or it's not. I would make them define how this game is going to be played early. I'd be physical with them off the top. I'd try to sit a safety over the top of them. I would try to play kind of a double coverage. And I think the Titans tried to double him in a lot of different ways. They were paying extra attention to him when the Bengals matched up the last 2 times. So I'm trying to, it sucks though, because I don't think you can force the Bengals to play left-handed in the same way you can force other teams, because I think there's a lot of weapons. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. I think those guys are very capable of making this team pay too. I will say really quick, and I'll just jump back to you in a second, Matty. But the thing that really bothers me and that worries me is that we've seen this team continue to struggle outside the numbers with some of these games since the Bengals game. Like, I think about some of the only success the Steelers had was winning outside the numbers. And you've had some issues in the secondary at times with, Mike Hughes playing. Mike Hughes has given up some of those opportunities. Those are some of the things I worry about a little bit. If the secondary is going to be thin, that's some of the things I'm concerned about. Maddie, what are you doing? How are you looking at this situation? How are you playing this game?
So anytime Jamar Chase is on the outside, we are going to bracket him. Don't care. We're bracketing him anytime he's on the outside. That's plain and simple. I'm not going to give him, I will waste, so to speak, another defender to straight up bracket him. Maybe you can save it for third downs, whatever you want to do. But he's getting a lot of brackets when he's on the outside. When they align him in the slot, I think you can get away with skipping the bracket and just keeping a deep half safety over the top of him, because I don't think the Bengals specifically, and especially with Jamar Chase, they're not running him on a ton of crossing routes. They're not running him across the field a ton. So I think if you're going to bracket him, you might be wasting. You can essentially get the same thing if you just play a deep half safety over the top. So when he's in the slot, I'm just keeping 2 guys over the top. They love to run him on sail routes or corner routes out of the slots, slot fade. You'll get a lot of those, but I can help with that safety over the top when he's on the outside. Like I said, straight up bracket every time. I'm making somebody else beat me. We can talk about T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd being these fun weapons, and they are. I don't think they're bad players by any means. I'd love either one of them on the Chiefs. I don't think either one of them are good enough to beat the Chiefs. I don't think that the Chiefs are going to lose a game to T. Higgins. They're not going to lose a game to Tyler Boyd, especially Tyler Boyd just beating L'Jarius Sneed out of the slot time and time again. I don't see that happening. I don't think those guys can have a 250-yard game. Now, I say that, and Gabe Davis just.
I would say 2 words: Gabriel Davis.
Right, and that's going to bring us back to this. Everything I'm doing is basing on Tyrann Mathieu playing, because if Tyrann Mathieu plays, at least 2 of those touchdowns to Gabe Davis aren't wide open. I'm not saying he doesn't catch them, but 2 of them aren't wide open down the middle of the field because Watts is in there. There's a miscommunication in the secondary, whatever it may be. So I would challenge Higgins. I would challenge Boyd to win. I would challenge Joe Burrow, who's great. He is great getting the ball out quick, reading stuff pre-snap. I would challenge him to be in lockstep with anybody else but Chase, because I think that it's going to be less consistent throughout the whole game. And that brings me to my next point. The next biggest thing from that game: how do you attack Joe Burrow? Are you pressuring him? Are you just rushing 4? What's your path to success there, Kent?
That's a big question, because it didn't feel like, interior pressure, that quick pressure has been particularly there recently. And that's the big question. Like, Chris Jones has to play a big factor in this football game. And if you think you can get home with 4 with this pass rush, who has shown some promise and shown some, they've all, like, I think, Melvin Ingram, Frank Clark, Chris Jones have all had their moments this year. But last week, they struggled to really get home as consistently, especially with the interior pressure with 4. And you would have liked to see them get a little bit more. You've got this is. It's. I don't want to say it's just like, let's see what works on game day. But honestly, I think the best interest is to get home with 4. The best hope is, I think you got to get home with 4, because I think Chris Jones can really wreck this game, because the interior of that Bengals offensive line is bad. But if you're not going to do it, you've got to try to pressure him, because this guy's shown a willingness to hold on to the football a little bit too long to try to make plays. He's tried to extend outside of the pocket, and he's been caught incapable of doing it. So, I think you try to get home with 4 early, and then if not, you're gonna try to heat him up. You've got to try to heat him up, because I think he makes really bad decisions at times in the pocket. I don't think he's mobile enough to escape. And he sat on some footballs last week against the Titans that really hurt their team. We're talking about this game, and they only put up 19 points, but I think that's kind of the approach I'm taking. What are you taking?
I think you're right. Something I noticed with Joe Burrow is that I think he's actually very squirrely in the pocket. I think he's very mobile and can escape a lot of pressure. We saw that against the Chiefs. We've seen it over and over again, but I don't think he's a dynamic athlete. So if you're
real quick. Sorry. Before you get too far, is he healthy though? Because he did not look quite, he limped through the end of the game against the Chiefs. Are we sure he's healthy? And are we sure he's as mobile as he was against the Chiefs? Because
he just got hit 67 times in this Titans game.
And he didn't look the part. He didn't look as mobile as he has against the Titans. So
I think there's a reason for that, though. I think it's the way the Titans rushed him. The Titans don't try to consistently bring speed pressure off both edges at once. Specifically, they did it to the Chiefs. They were doing it a lot to the Bengals. Their left defensive end, the offense is right. He's much more of a contained rusher. He's making sure that quarterback can't flush out to his right. That's where a lot of right-handed quarterbacks like to get out to. So I think what the Titans were doing, they were running a lot of stunts and games up front, but they constantly had somebody off the left side, off their left side, the offense is right, holding contained. And as soon as you see that as a quarterback, you kind of have to either step up or you have to pick a different way to scramble. And I think that's what really slowed down Burrow. And that's where you saw him holding onto the ball a little bit, was he realized he had to escape because pressure was coming. But when you see that, Danico Autry was looping around to the outside, or you see that Harold Landry wasn't screaming off the edge, but instead, rushing high up the arc, and he's holding you in the pocket. Burrow doesn't have Josh Allen's or Patrick Mahomes' athleticism to tuck it and sprint through the B gap and go pick up 13 yards with regularity. That's not his game. He'd rather escape out the side. So I think if you're the Chiefs, I think the 4-man pass rush is clearly the key cog here. You just saw the Titans absolutely destroy the Bengals with their 4-man pass rush. But I think a big part of it is running a lot of these twists, a lot of these games. Make sure you're always having somebody looping around or rushing deep off Burrow's right side to keep him in the pocket. And then you're kind of letting your other 3 guys win. If that requires an extra game, we saw the Chiefs pulling off a lot of, tackle end stunts against the Bills to quite a bit of success. That was where a lot of their pass rush success came from. So be it. Maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe it is Chris Jones just dominating, another former Jayhawk and Adeniji there on the interior who's had a rough couple weeks. Whatever it may be, I just think you need to try to keep him in the pocket and then get the rush. Now, I will say this too. I want a lot of sim pressure. I want a lot of guys to the line of scrimmage, a lot of guys over the front, because that Bengals offensive line is not picking up pressure very well. The Bengals are quick to go into extra protection versus teams that blitz a lot. The Titans don't blitz a lot, so they were still willing to stay in 5-man protections. The Chiefs do. We saw the Titans get into max protect a lot against the Chiefs. You bring sim pressure and force them to at least start with this tight end sifting across the formation, trying to pick up a blitz, the running back looking to chip. I think you can actually catch them out with a lot of sim pressure. And then when you start doing that, bring some of those slot pressures. Tyrann Mathieu, Rashad Fenton, L'Jarius Sneed all had pretty clear runways at one point in time against Joe Burrow that Burrow didn't know was coming till the last second in that first game. You got to capitalize and you get those, but call up some of those. I don't want a lot of cover zero. I don't need a lot of, 6, 7 guys rushing, but 5, the occasional corner blitz, all about it as long as you're getting a lot of other guys at the line of scrimmage. Like I said, give me those creepers. Give me that sim pressure right up the front and make that interior offensive line that's been bad, try to sift it out, and then bring a corner off the edge.
3 sacks for the interior of the defensive line the last time these two teams played. Chris Jones had 2 sacks. Jaron Reed had 1 as well. 5 QB hits between the two of them. Frank Clark also got involved with a sack, a tackle for loss QB hit as well. So it did come along a lot. A lot of that pressure did come from the interior there. I don't want to circle back too far, but I do want to talk about Ja'Marr Chase. One thing really quick that I forgot to kind of mention earlier. We saw how the Chiefs lost to, how Ja'Marr Chase beat the Chiefs last time. The thing that you've got to also pay attention to this week.
The push off. Oh, sorry.
Well, that too. But the Bengals did a fantastic job against the Titans of getting him involved. Like, I think the Titans were very intentional about trying to take him away. But you saw Ja'Marr Chase make some plays. Ja'Marr Chase played the Deebo Samuel role in a little bit of the run game. They threw some quick screens out to him to try to see if he could create, and he did. I think he had one of the biggest plays of that game early in the game. They threw a little screen out to him, and he was able to take it over 50 yards. They got him involved in the run game in some of these key situations. So, you're not going to completely eliminate Ja'Marr Chase, and he was able to get his in a lot more ways. I think you probably got to live with some of those kind of things. You got to tackle well, you got to play well. You're just kind of, I think for me, it's just hoping that the Chiefs don't lose the same way they lost the last time. So I think that's kind of how I'm kind of approaching this a little bit. Is there anything else on the on the Bengals side of it that you really want, or on the Bengals offensive side you really want to talk about before we move?
What's one thing that you think the Bengals might come out and do a little bit different from that game? Like what is going to be their counter to what we're talking about the Chiefs have to be ready for? Like, what is their next step on top of the 50-50 YOLO balls to Ja'Marr Chase and hoping Joe Burrow picks apart the blitz? Like, what is their kind of backup plan or counter to that?
I think what I just talked about, I think they're going to try to get Ja'Marr Chase involved in more ways, because I think they're probably anticipating the Chiefs are going to do a lot to try to take Ja'Marr Chase out of this picture. So I think you could see some things for the Tyler Boyds and for the T. Higginses of the world set up a little bit better. And I think they're going to be more intentional about moving the ball to them. And though you can do a lot worse than those guys, like I know you kind of talk about them, you could do a lot worse than those kind of guys. But I also think they're going to be very intentional about just trying to get the ball in the hands of Ja'Marr Chase in a lot of different ways. So Chiefs are going to have to be prepared for a lot of those things. What are you seeing, Maddie?
Joe Mixon. More Joe Mixon. I think they did a pretty good job. They were good with the
Titans too. Yeah.
Yeah, they did a good job mixing him in against the Titans. I said before the Chiefs played him that I still even thought their running game was pretty collegey and that everything was trying to bounce outside and just outrun everybody. And I think you kind of saw that versus the Chiefs, and it wasn't overly effective. But they figured out some stuff. You saw it against the Raiders. You saw it against the Titans. When their back is up against the wall and the passing game isn't working, they are willing to rely on Joe Mixon a little bit more. I think you saw the Bills find a little bit of success running the ball at specific times. Some of that's Josh Allen, which Burrow can't do. But I do think Joe Mixon's a better runner than anybody else that was playing in that Bills-Chiefs game. So I think Joe Mixon could be a little bit of a secret weapon. He's really good at finding some cutback lanes. So the Chiefs will have to be disciplined, presumably playing out of a lighter box.
Yep. All right, so let's do this really quick. Let's just do players to watch for the Chiefs defense against the Bengals offense. Who's your guy, Maddie?
Oh, a Chiefs defensive. Oh, we're going Tyrann Mathieu. He's coming back. He's going to be lurking over the middle of the field. I don't think Joe Burrow is going to test the middle of the field a ton against the Chiefs. He did a little bit against the Raiders, but there's not the same level of playmakers there. I think you saw against the Titans, they were back to throwing up the sidelines, back to throwing these outbreaking routes from guys with condensed splits. I do think that he'll avoid the middle of the field a little bit, but if the Chiefs come out, they're bracketing Jamar Chase. They're playing better coverage on the outside. They're funneling stuff to the middle. I think Tyrann Mathieu could be in a good position to come back, put a stamp on a game since he missed the biggest game of the year last week. I think he's going to come out. He's going to be ready to play. And Joe Burrow's going to give you a chance. He'll give you a chance to make a play on the football. And I think this is one where the honey badger comes in. The landlord comes in and collects his rent from those pesky Bengals trying to come to his turf.
I don't think Steve Spagnuolo is just going to entirely bracket Jamar Chase the entirety of the time. In the few situations that present themselves, Charvarius Ward's got to be ready. And I think Charvarius Ward had a pretty good game last week. I think, Matty, you even talked a little bit about it, the confidence. Like he can kind of be a guy on some emotional mood swings at times. And sometimes he's playing with confidence. Sometimes he isn't. Hopefully some confidence carries over into this game and he takes advantage of this second opportunity. I think there might be some opportunities for him against Jamar Chase one-on-one. He's going to have to make a few plays here and there because I don't I just joke. I mean, we know Spags. Spags isn't going to entirely abandon everything he did the last two times, last time around. I don't think they're just going to completely take and try to wipe him out for the entirety of the game. There's going to be some spots. Joe Burrow is going to take his shots. Charvarius Ward's going to have to make some plays. All right, let's talk about the Chiefs offense versus the Bengals defense.
Now, before we go too far here, though, hey, Kent, who's the best quarterback in the entire world?
Oh, this is an easy one. It's Patrick LeVon Mahomes.
Boy, you said that with a lot of confidence. You feel really confident in that answer?
Yeah, 100%. And if there was any form of rankings that would say otherwise, I would discredit the source entirely.
Do you know how confident you are on this answer? That's how confident I am that Macadoodles is the best liquor store you will ever come across in the entire world, just like Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback. Now, you may be asking yourself right now, wait, I don't think there's a Macadoodles near me. Well, actually, Kansas City area, coming this year to Lee Summit, Macadoodles will be opening up right there next to you. If that's not close enough, that's fine. You just need to get in touch with Roger at info@macadoodles.com. You need to bring another one to the area. You don't want just one Patrick Mahomes on your team. You want two, you want three, you want four of them all over the area. You need Macadoodles near you, like the Chiefs need Patrick Mahomes to win the Super Bowl. You don't want to be stuck with the Josh Allen. You don't want to have a Joe Burrow. No, you want the best service. You want the best selection. You want the best liquor store you can get, the best bang for your buck. That is going to be at Macadoodles every single time. So again, get in touch with Roger at info@macadoodles.com if you are interested in bringing a second Macadoodles to you. And if not, hey, here later this year, Lee Summit, when it opens up, you got to get in there. You want to meet Patrick Mahomes if you have a chance to. You want to go to Macadoodles when you have a chance. That is how confident I am, Kent. Just as confident as you are in Patrick Mahomes being better than Joe Burrow.
Well, let's talk about Mahomes then. I want to start with the offense. 28 points in the first half, the last time that these two teams matched up. And I just remember getting into halftime thinking, boy, this team is in control of this football game. I just felt they went out, they put their foot on the gas for a little while. I believe they scored 4 straight touchdowns. Wasn't it the game that they Tyreek Hill dropped a 65 air yard throw to Patrick Mahomes with it was in the last minute of the game, something crazy like that. A few situational things took some points off the board. Tyreek Hill simply dropping a football, holding penalty on Byron Pringle. Second half, they only had 3 possessions. They only had 3 possessions the entire second half. 2 of them were with a lead. Both of them resulted in punting. The only score that they had was to tie the football game late in the game, 11 plays, 52 yards, 5-minute, 43-second drive. Are you concerned about the second half performance that you saw offensively? Do you think there's context? What are your feelings on what you saw in the second half of that game specifically?
No, I'm not concerned because I have watched the Chiefs play the Steelers and the Buffalo Bills since then. Had it just been coming right off the game, yeah, I do think it was a little concerning how stagnant the Chiefs offense. I know 3 possessions. There wasn't a lot to really judge this on, but I do think it came out a little stagnant. They came out almost with their first drive that they had. It was just almost kind of lackadaisical, like they thought they were just going to go ahead and move down the field and score and end this game. But then you got a drop by Travis Kelce. You had some poor execution with a couple penalties and little stuff like that here and there. I don't think they came out, they weren't crisp. They didn't play their best game. So I think that falls more into, I don't want to say unlucky, but just kind of a game script scenario. If you take what you've seen from these last 2 games from the Chiefs, everything since the first quarter of that Pittsburgh Steelers game in the wild card round up through the entire Buffalo Bills game, I don't know why you would not be feeling confident the Chiefs are going to score every single time they touch the football against the Cincinnati Bengals defense, which is not near as good as the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills defense is better. It's schemed better. They have played with better technique. They're more disciplined. It's simply a better defense than what the Bengals just had. And
More
the
talented.
Chiefs, more talented.
I mean,
on every single level, on every level of it, they absolutely are. I see no reason that the Chiefs should not score at will against this Bengals defense. I hate to say it because I actually think the Bengals defense has done a little bit more these last few weeks in terms of confusing offenses. I think they have done some good stuff. They've played some different coverages. They played a little bit of bear front. They've done different stuff. It's just, I don't know if they have the talent to execute cleanly, play in and play out, especially such a wide array of schemes that they try to play. I really do think the Chiefs just picked them apart for the majority of the day.
We've talked about this a lot on this show, and I think it was a calculation error from Andy Reid with how he managed the second half. And I'm not absolving him of this. I think this is a flaw of his, and it's something that pops up from time to time in the regular season specifically. I think Andy sat on the football a little bit. I think he tried to manage the remainder of that game. I think in some ways, shape, or form, he thought he had enough points on the board. I think, I don't think he came into that second half with the kind of aggressiveness that you probably will see as this team is trying to get to the finish line on the AFC side. The Chiefs only had 1 possession where they were trailing late in that game. So the first 20 minutes of that second half, they had managed that game with a lead. And the ball, the one time that they actually finally put some points on the board was the possession that they were trailing. Now they tied the game, and they had their red zone foibles in the red zone. But I think it was some mismanagement, some miscalculations there, and some not to absolve it, but I think this is something we've seen Andy do in the past. Is he kind of just takes the foot off the gas a little bit and trying to coast into the finish line, which is why you never really see, you don't see Andy Reid teams step on the throat of teams as much as you would prefer them to. So I do think that there was definitely more in the tank. There's more they could have done in the second half, but they're trying to refrain and hold some things back. I think that they felt better about the game situation and flow, and things turned on their heads extremely quickly. So I am not worried about what we saw, but I'm going to hammer on this again. And I've been hammering on it all season. And I cannot believe more firmly in what I'm about to say, because this has been a talking point, and it's been a very obvious trend. And this isn't like next level brain stuff. Just protect the football. Just protect the football. That is all this team is going to have to do this week. If they protect the football, they are going to win this football game. The turnovers have been the thing that have wound up costing this team the vast majority of the time. Didn't happen, I don't think, really the last time that these two teams played as much. But this week, if they just simply protect the football, they are going to win this football game. And last week, perfect game. You saw it. And they needed the margin for error was not particularly, not particularly big last week. I think it's the same kind of thing. Yes, like Andy let his foot off the gas, but if this team just doesn't turn the ball over, they execute in the red zone, good things are going to happen. I don't know if you have anything to add on that, Matty.
I wanted to keep just going back and talking about the Bengals defense here, because I don't want to not credit them at all. Like I was saying, I think they do some fun stuff. I think that they mix up their coverages very well. I think that they do a good job getting in and out of a lot of different things and trying to disguise it. I have said what they do is they run like a like a younger version of a Steve Spagnuolo defense in which they're just throwing a lot at you. I think they've gotten better as the years got on at figuring out what they like, what they want to stick, but I still think there's some extra fat that needs to be cut off their play sheet. You saw it in the first matchup. They're sitting there. They'd played a lot of cover 1 and a lot of cover 3 leading up to the Chiefs game. They come out and they show these 2 high looks. The Chiefs are dinking and dunking down the field like they've done against it all year, and it's working. And then as soon as the Bengals flip and try to throw some kind of cover 1 or cover 3 wrinkle, the Chiefs hit a dino route to Demarcus Robinson for a huge play. They hit McCole Hardman on wasp. Like, soon as the Bengals start trying to get deep into their bag of different coverages and mixing things up, the Chiefs started hitting explosive plays. The Bengals come back. They counter by going back to 2 high shells in the second half. They do stop the Chiefs, so maybe they did. Maybe they did figure out something in that second half. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe they found an adjustment. I think it was just a lot more, though, that the Chiefs came out and played a little conservative. So he said, I like what a lot of the Bengals defense does. Don't be surprised if the Bengals come out there and play a lot more coverages than the Buffalo Bills or the Pittsburgh Steelers did. They're going to put a lot more on film. They're going to do a lot more pre-snap. They're going to do a lot more shifting and stuff post-snap. They do a lot of post-snap rotations. It's just, I think when you call that much stuff, you're running into the risk of not only a blown coverage, but you're going to get a guy that's probably not used to playing a deep zone sometimes, and his spacing might be bad. He might not squeeze down a post route the right way. He might get pulled a little bit out of the way and give up a corner route. So I think that's kind of why their defense doesn't concern me overall. I think they do too much, and you can't be that defense isn't excellent at doing everything. They're okay at doing everything. And so it confuses quarterbacks like Ryan Tannehill, who aren't very good. Ryan Tannehill's not a good quarterback, so you can do all these different motions and different fronts and get him making mistakes. I don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to give you those free interceptions that Ryan Tannehill was. I don't think he's not going to make you pay when you have a middle linebacker trying to match the number 3 receiver on a vertical up the seam with no safety help. So I think the Chiefs will be able to take advantage of all the different stuff the Bengals like to do, just like you saw in the first half. It was once the Bengals settled down and played safer and the Chiefs started playing a little bit safer and more conservative that you saw the comeback. So for this specific reason, I actually think Patrick Mahomes is going to have a very good game, but I'm thinking Tyreek Hill. I'm thinking Travis Kelce. I think the stars. I think this is a game where the stars actually shine for the Chiefs. I think this is a game where you're not going to be having to rely on Byron Pringle or Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield to have a big game. I think your stars are going to be able to have a big game because they are going to find a way to get open when the Bengals are doing all these different motions. That connection that Mahomes and them have, I think they'll just get aligned. I think it's going to be a big, big showing for Kelce, for Hill, for all the guys you would expect, and not having to rely on the role players like the Chiefs had to do a lot throughout the season.
Well, and I think you can think about second reaction plays too. And just for the record, only one person had it was McCole Hardman with 53 yards, Tyreek Hill for 40 yards, and everybody else had under 40 yards. So I mean, like, this was a game where the ball was spread around a little bit. I mean, again, the Chiefs only had 3 possessions in the second half. They kind of pulled up a little bit. But I think the second reaction plays, to your point, is something that could be very impactful here too, with Mahomes and the connections that he has with guys like Tyreek Hill, guys like Travis Kelce, kind of when things go a little bit off script. Because maybe the Bengals are throwing a lot of stuff out there and they get got, and they're able to do something, kind of mixing things up, and maybe on first reaction, things aren't clean. Second reaction plays, I think that's where things could get a little bit murkier in some of that kind of situations, some of those opportunities for Mahomes to take advantage of and to hit some of those guys like you're talking about. So those are some things, like I think it's a very good point. It's interesting though how the ball was kind of spread around the way it was the last time that these two teams played. Only one person over 50, and that guy had 1 catch for 53 yards. I mean, that's just wild how it is. So that the Bengals did a good job of containing some of those bigger stars. We'll see if they're able to do it this time around. Anything else on the Bengals defense / Chiefs offense that you really want to cover?
I think that the Bengals did a great job. Going into the first matchup again, Bengals run defense, not that great. It was pretty pedestrian. A lot of teams were able to find success against it. I think the Titans, the Raiders thought they were going to do that. Boy, tell you what, DJ Reader's been a monster versus the run. I mean, he's been great in these playoffs. He has been absolutely dominating these run fronts. So I wouldn't expect the Chiefs to be able to do a whole lot on the ground. I will say real quick, I like the Chiefs incorporation of all the zone insert stuff. If you guys aren't following, haven't seen kcsn.substack.com, I wrote an article about how the Chiefs were using these zone insert plays, getting into their RPO looks, why it was successful against the Bills. I think there might actually be some pretty good parallels between that and what you're going to have against the Bengals. So I do think there is at least a specific run that should line up and match up well against the Bengals defense right now. I wouldn't expect the Chiefs to have a ton of success on the ground, though. Maybe they break a long 15-yarder here or there to make it look okay. I just don't anticipate the Chiefs running the ball, especially the way Reader's been playing right now. Logan Wilson's getting a little bit healthier, so he's back out there. Like, they have good enough run defenders in the middle to slow down the Chiefs. I think it's going to be all about Patrick Mahomes and what he's able to do. And I don't know how you go watch that Bills defense, how good they've been all year, and how Patrick Mahomes easily diced them up all game and don't have so much confidence in the Chiefs going into this one.
I'll do some players to watch on offense for the Chiefs. So, Maddie, who are you going with?
Let's do Orlando Brown Jr. I think he's been playing really good down the stretch of the season. He missed that first game against the Bengals, and it ended up being Joe Thuney had to slide over there because Lucas Niang got hurt as well. Joe Thuney acquitted himself very, very, very well for having to kick over to tackle during the game. He wasn't as good as Orlando Brown Jr. Trey Hendrickson didn't dominate him, but he made some really clutch, really timely plays. There was a couple pressures that Trey Hendrickson got that directly altered and stopped a first down being completed from Patrick Mahomes to somebody else. So there was an impact there. The fact that Joe Thuney had to slide over there very well could have impacted that game. Maybe only one or two plays, but they were just in such high leverage situations. I think Orlando Brown Jr. plays left tackle better than Joe Thuney did. There's a reason he plays there all the time. He's been really good this year. His game against the Bills was absolutely phenomenal. I think he could be in for a really big matchup with Hendrickson if he can slow him down, shut him down very close to what Thuney did, just not give up those big plays in those high leverage situations. I just think it makes it that much easier for the Chiefs, if he can go out there and play as good as he has the last 4 or 5 weeks.
If there was ever a time to subscribe to KC Sports Network, it would be right now, as the Chiefs are looking to win their third straight AFC championship and achieve their third straight Super Bowl appearance. So if you're watching right now, we would love for you to hit the subscribe button over there. Please consider hitting that subscribe button and getting all this content that we've got on our channel here, because we've got a lot coming, especially since we're all going to be together in Las Vegas for the Shrine Bowl and covering the Chiefs playoff run from there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So please consider hitting that. My player to watch on offense is Mecole Hardman. And I think what's interesting about Mecole is I don't know if his usage has been entirely different than a lot of the ways that the team has tried to get him involved recently, because I think you've seen a lot of the same kind of concepts. You know, they're using him a lot behind the line of scrimmage. They've hit him on that under route, which was really nice. But I think, recently, the last couple of weeks, I think a lot of, what we've seen from him has been, hey, executing the things that they've been kind of asking him the last, for most of the season, really. You saw the end around, the outstanding execution there. The under route, we kind of just talked about 2 big plays that kind of changed that game in a big way against the Buffalo Bills. They just need to continue to, when his name's called and these opportunities that are presenting themselves with some of these reverses, some jets, some slip screens, under routes, and maybe even a vertical shot here and there. You just got to continue to make most of those opportunities. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to get big volume this week, next week, moving forward. But obviously, like, there is big play potential with his vertical speed, and he maximized it this last week, and it was huge in this team's, execution and finally pulling it off late in the game. So I'm watching Mecole Hardman in this game for, I don't know if it's going to be voluminous touches, but the touches that he gets, you're hoping are as impactful as they've been recently. All right, Maddie, game prediction time for the AFC Championship game.
Well, first of all, shout out. We got a lot of Bengals fans watching us right now. We got a lot of Bengals fans in the chat, a lot of Bengals fans. They have not been overly happy with, our thoughts on how the Chiefs are going to score at will. And I apologize for that, guys. I am sorry. I think the Bengals have had a great year. Their defense has played a lot better than you think the talent accumulation there would have let them. But it's not going to matter this week, guys. It's just not. You're running into Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, it was a great run, but this is it. This is where the luck kind of runs out for the Bengals. The Chiefs, I think, are playing better than anybody else in football right now on the offensive side of the ball. The defense, can give up some points. I would not be surprised to see the Bengals come out and score a lot of points. They score early. It's the adjustments that'll come. I don't think there's any defensive adjustments you can pull off right now to slow down Patrick Mahomes, barring injuries to somebody on the offense right now. I think he easily dices up this team. I have the Chiefs taking this one 28-28. And I don't think it ends up being that close at the end of it, just because the way this Chiefs team is playing right now. And I got to tell you, Arrowhead, much louder than any SEC stadium you can come up with. Much louder.
Emotionally, like, this game is hard for me right now, and it's weird. And I can't believe I am sitting here as a Chiefs fan, a long-suffering Chiefs fan, 32 years old. I have, seen a lot of games that have infamous names, the no punt game, the kicker who shall not be named. There's so many moments in my existence as a fan, and I'm over here sitting staring at the third AFC championship game, not even feeling the same kind of emotions that I probably, would have felt 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 2 years ago. What Patrick Mahomes has done is normalize things that are not common. And we hammer this a lot, and I know I hammer this a lot, but I don't feel, I'm not scared of this moment. I'm not scared of this moment. I'm not concerned in the same way that I've been in the past. This team is led by someone who doesn't blink, who doesn't flinch, who, when things seem bleak, he rises to a level that doesn't make sense. We continue to watch what we have seen in the Patrick Mahomes era, and he finds ways to exceed an expectation that is beyond big. And I just don't think there's any way, shape, or form that the Cincinnati Bengals are walking into Arrowhead and coming out with a victory. Because I know Joe Shiesty's on the other side over there, the number one pick, getting the gat, wearing a hat and t-shirt, celebrating with a cigar after beating the Kansas City Chiefs over a measly divisional win. But we don't care about divisional wins in Kansas City. Our season started more or less last week, because our sights have always been bigger. Our sights are bigger, and they will continue to be bigger for the next decade, because Patrick Mahomes continues to keep guys like Joe Shiesty where they're supposed to be, down. Patrick Mahomes, the best player in the world, resides in Kansas City. And y'all have been disrespecting him all season. Y'all got a reminder on Sunday. Y'all are getting a reminder this Sunday. And y'all are getting a reminder in 3 Sundays in the Super Bowl. We will talk to you after a Kansas City Chiefs 38-21 victory over the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday in the AFC Championship.
That's what Craig predicted too. Craig predicted the same thing. I just want to put that in there. We'll talk to you guys later. I ruined Kent's outro. We're just going to let this linger until the producer shuts it down, because this is good right